Hey YouTube, my name is Andrew with Triangle 4 Studios, and today we're continuing to work in Blender for Unity in developing assets for our game Space One. You probably have seen that game. It's going to be released on Steam in March, and if you haven't seen it, go on and check it out here at this link. So we're going to pick up and continue where we left off, and this time we're going to skip all of the introductions and just jump right into our second cooling design. You've probably noticed here on the screen that we've got a little bit of a heatsink going on. That's our first cooler. We're not going to really do much more than that. We're just going to leave it exactly as it is. And then our second model is going to be a little more detailed than this one. We're going to do a couple of more interesting things, and that's what we're going to be doing in this video here. So we'll go ahead and jump right into that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to drag this heatsink here up to our cooling. We're going to name it Cooling 1, I believe. Actually, let me have a look in the code. So we've got names for everything, and this is going to be basic air cooling. Alright, that's fantastic. Now, let's move on into gas dispersion level 1, or gas dispersion 1. So that's our model. We'll go ahead and give that a new collection and just toss that in there. It's important when you're working for any game development company, make sure that you're really organized. Every company is going to have different requirements of you. They're going to want you to do different things, but it's still important to keep yourself organized if they don't. And so that's why we're doing this. We have a certain set of policies that we follow, and one of them is that everything has its own collection, and everything has its own... The collection is to be named the exact same as what the game object is supposed to be named. Okay. Let's have a look now. Bye-bye, Mr. Cooling System. You probably notice things like gaps here, and that's fine. That's necessary. In Unity, we bring that together. It's not a concern for us here. And we'll go 90, and let's bring that up to 2 meters, and let's move that into position. This one we're going to do something a lot more radical than the last one. This one is going to have, because we're using gas dispersion, we're going to actually have a small tank that pumps some liquid in, and we're going to actually use a lot thinner fins. So let's go 128. Actually, we can go 256. And it's going to be a little more tedious to get it set up, but it'll look way better. And stop that. Alright. Probably noticed that I favor doing things a certain way, and that's for a good reason. Now, this time I wanted to extrude inward, and I wanted to make sure that I did a full check of my extrusion. Oops. Yep, that's fine. Alright, so thinner fins. We're going to go down 15. Alright, that's 15. Same on the other side. Whoops. Alright, 15. And in case you second guess yourself like I do all the time, you can check to see if you're actually at 15 by just... Yeah, we're fine. Oh, look! Blender just did some weird things. Let's undo those weird things, shall we? Okay, that was a brutal fail, actually. Absolutely brutal fail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And that is more than 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, that's 15 and 15. Alright, extruding. Now this time, we are going to stop that. Stop that. Blender, fix that. Alright, so we got them thinning out, which is really good. They look like wings, which is also really good. This is bulky, and you know, if it weren't being attached to a flying robot, then bulky would probably be a bad thing. If you were a human holding this at your side, you would be poked by these fins and probably burned badly by them, which would probably cause you to throw it at something, which may work, you know. Maybe that would be your special move or something. I don't know. Anyway, special move. But yeah, so here we got some fins, and they're not so bad. We're going to leave the bottom alone, and for a couple of reasons. But first of all, we're just going to leave it alone. Now, let's imagine that this reactor is in play. Alright, it does not line up, and it's right now the only reactor that comes through there. We will rebuild that so that it does line up, rather than being overly worried about it. I do believe that this reactor is a lot smaller than this in-game, so I'm not overly worried right now. Now, we want to put some cooling pipes into this, and we don't want to be boring. We don't want to have the same old cooling pipes, which is a straight pipe. We want to have something that kind of curves and goes off to the side, maybe plugs in here, and maybe comes up here and plugs in here. We can imagine, you don't have to have everything make sense when you design something. It's nice to have everything make sense so you can explain how everything works. However, in this situation, we're not overly concerned with making everything make sense. Alright, so if our pipe magically plugs into this, we can just imagine that there's some kind of internal components that we can't see that do some things that we can't see it doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to create those pipes. So to do so, we're going to go create a curve, and I like path. You can literally use whatever curve you want. You don't have to use a path. They all have different advantages. I like path because it's easy to see and it's easy to manipulate, and so it makes it interesting, fun, and simple. Alright, so here's our path, and it comes up through, yada yada yada. Yeah, that's not bad. Alright. It's got a good arc to it. And of course, if you didn't know, the path doesn't follow this, it follows the black line. So let's go ahead and get a bit of a visualization. If you've never worked with paths before, I'm hoping that if you're here, you have worked with paths before. But if you haven't worked with paths before, I'll give you a bit of an explanation of how paths work. So here is your path information and your path settings and what you can do with your path. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into bevel. You would think that geometry would be where you do this. You would think that the top part of geometry would be where you do this. Surprisingly, it's not. It's actually in the bevel. And what this does is it creates a tube. And you can change that if you don't want to use a tube and you want to use a square object. You can go ahead and use a square object. You just have to create an object, plug it into this object here, and it'll work perfectly fine. right? And then you can choose to fill caps if you do that. You can't fill caps otherwise. All right, so that's that. It looks good. We want to plug it in now, so we're going to just manipulate it a bit. We'll start by doing that. I'm going to grab that and this, and we'll just subdivide. That looks good. Right. Grab these two, and we will subdivide again. Bring this one in. Bring this one over. And down. Bring this one over. I just had to sneeze. Alright, so that looks pretty interesting. Maybe I'll bring this up just a bit. That's good. And I apologize if there's odd noises in the background again. I've got guinea pigs that make their... Well, they like to chew on things, whatever they can chew on. Right now they've got some wood that they're chewing on. They love that. Can't hear it when they chew hay, thank goodness, because they do that 90% of the time. So, and if you don't have a guinea pig, I recommend getting a guinea pig. They are fantastic little animals, albeit they poop a lot. If you don't like cleaning up poop, don't get a guinea pig, trust me. They make dogs look like a walk in the park. No pun intended. Yeah, so I want to clean that up a bit. I don't want it to be... obviously I don't want it to do that. That looks weird. But what I don't want it to do is I don't want it to arc before it comes out at the top. So we're going to just... And I mean, you can do all kinds of different things. You don't have to follow what I'm doing here. I don't recommend that you follow what other people do, actually. If you're going to learn from a tutorial, it's a good idea to make it your own. Otherwise, it's pointless. And that would be fine if it was handmade, right? Right there would be great if it was handmade, but you got to keep in mind, like, machines generally make things like this. Now, in the instance of where this character is, they are making everything by hand, but at the same time, we're assuming that they have some advanced technology helping them make these things. Yeah. I think that'll work. Alright, so it looks pretty good. So we like it. I think we'll stick with it. It looks not so bad. Let's do a duplicate. So... create a duplicate, and then we're going to go ahead and modify the duplicate, because obviously it's easy to create a second path and work with that second path, but you do not want them to look the same unless they're supposed to look the same. And you'll probably notice they do actually merge well together, but there's a couple problems, and one of them is this gap. changed my mind. I don't want these close to each other. Not even close. Yeah, that's better. Excellent. All right, so it's something interesting anyway. And then if you understand how radiators work, this is really inefficient. You've got two cooling pipes on one side, and then nothing on the other side. So half your radiator functions, the other half of your radiator is going to stay cold almost all the time. And so we need pipes on the other side. That works. Looks good. Now. Yeah. We don't need this excess geometry here either. Should probably deal with that. Don't be lazy, like I do sometimes. I am a partner in the company that I work for, so if I'm lazy, no one yells at me. But if you don't get rid of excess geometry like this and you work for a company like Sony or EA Games or even some of the smaller game companies, it may be your last day working for them. There are certain expectations of people, and laziness is not acceptable. Even our employees aren't allowed to do that. Not that we would fire them for it, though. We have some pretty good guys, and we don't want to lose them. Don't. I know they're probably going to watch this video, but don't tell them I told them that. Don't tell them I told you that. All right. Shh. Keep it secret. Keep it safe. All right. So, yeah, there we go. We got some weird pipe stuff going on here. I feel like maybe, and again, we got to keep in mind that the character is actually handcrafting these. Something that somebody did mention to me in the interim just a moment ago. They are handcrafting, the player is handcrafting these, so we don't actually want them to be too accurate, which is one of the reasons why we need things to be a little bit rough around the edges. And one last subdivision to give that a nice sharp corner. And voila. Not terrible. Not great, but not terrible. There. Good. Alright, so we've accomplished something. It looks half decent. And now I think, and this is good because the majority of your heat is going to be at the front. At least that's my whatever explanation for it. And you're going to see that the cooling pipe from the reactor is going to come along this side as well. So the back only needs that single pipe. It also has a longer throw, which means it'll cool more as it passes along this distance. So you don't need to have two pipes here. This one has almost the same surface area as both of these combined. So, in keeping with the consistency of making sure that we do our due diligence as animators and developers and producers and modelers, let's go ahead and make sure that we clear excess geometry if it's not needed. Subsurface geometry. Alright, that's good. I'm happy with those results. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to go to Object, Convert, and then just go Mesh from Curve. And then those are now meshes. And if we look at them, you can see that they're meshes. And there's not too much geometry, but they still look half decent. And if we were to go right-click and shade flat, you'd see that it's basically just, an extruded cylinder with a couple hundred segments cut along the side. So it's not bad. And we will join those, and we will duplicate that, and we will mirror on the y-axis. Sorry, my bad. Mirror on the x-axis. And then we're going to bring it into position on the other side, keeping it half central. Realistically, you would want it to be further down because that's where the meat of the radiator is. But for aesthetics, we don't want that. We want it to be like that. That'll work. It's good. All right. So we have our secondary cooler. There's only a couple more small things that you want to do whenever you develop something like this. You want to have hard modeling. Any hard modeling you want, or hard surface modeling, you want to be able to have something that makes it blend with that surface. Right now, we're not going to be cutting into this. I think that's wasteful, especially given the complexity of this already. We're going to quickly just. Nice thing about Blender is tools. It's a little bit better than Maya, in my opinion. I do not endorse or boycott either of the companies. They're both fantastic pieces of software. That's way too much geometry for something like that. My bad. Alright, so here's something we can do, and it's a nice way to just give it a little bit of an edge, right? Without asking too much of your polygon count, and at the same time, you do the job that you need to do, and that is to make it look like it blends. And that's kind of the whole purpose of what we're doing here. Now this is never going to be seen up this close. You'll never, ever, ever, ever see that this close. So we don't care about that. What we want is to make sure that this is rotated a little bit larger and then flattened out so that it suits its mount position better. And it needs to be a little high so that it can give off some, catch some light on its edges. And then we will give it a bevel, even though we probably shouldn't bevel something this small. Not probably, you should never bevel something this small. I'm just terrible that way. I mean, this detail is just so minuscule. I mean, even these don't need bevels, right? They're so small. You never see them. But anyway, not relevant. Not relevant. Let's do this. All right, we got a nice bevel in there. It makes it look a little more interesting. Blends up really nicely. Let's move that out of there so we can actually see it. And as you can see, yeah, it's not looking bad at all. It's not looking bad at all. So within the next 10 seconds here, we're just going to quickly throw together these in their correct positions. And then we're going to move on to our third one in our next video. Alright, so we got those. They look good. We will join them. And before you ever duplicate something, you should always freeze your transforms. Or not always, but most of the time. Unless you're doing something that needs its transforms to remain the same, you should always freeze those transforms. Later on, we'll do the same thing here on the bottom. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Or am I? Maybe I am. As you can see, these are not in the same position. Now they are. They look half decent. We will come in later on and do some tweaking to adjust things like that. Here, let's just do this really fast. I don't like to leave things undone. That's kind of who I am. Although you can probably figure out how this is going to look. Again, we're in pretty close, so you never have to worry about the quality of this. It looks like it maybe doesn't look nice, but when you zoom out and you're actually seeing it from the distance that you would see it, because you'd never be this close, it actually looks really good. That, again, that bevel was unnecessary. It does actually help, like if you're doing like an HD film, then that kind of bevel is really important, right? Because then you're able to bring small, finite details to the screen that allow the viewer to notice those details. And even though your conscious mind doesn't see it, your subconscious mind does, and it pays attention, is able to pick out those details and say, hey, it's realistic because blah, blah, blah. And this would be one of those examples of something that would catch light and catch the eye in just the right way, that it does look more realistic. All right, and so we've added this this cooling system. It's not that advanced, but it's much better looking than that garbage cooling system we started with. And so this is our gas dispersion cooling system. And now I'm just going to grab this all, bring it all together in one place. I'm going to group it all of the pipings, because we actually we want the pipes and their whoopsie. We want these guys to all be one. Stop that. And the reason for that is because you want color variation, even if it's minuscule, even if it's just tiny. You do want to have a variation in your color, so that, right, because all these pipes are always going to be the same color, because they're just, that's the way it would be. Your radiators are always going to be the same color, right? So we'll call that, where is that? Call that radiator. Sorry, I have to look through my pop filter to be able to type, so. And we'll call these the gaskets. They don't have to be called gaskets, but we'll call them gaskets. Whoops. You know, gasjets. And this will be the, these will be the pipes. And that's basically it. You got 3 different things, 3 different colors, all part of gas dispersion here, and we can now export that and and use that as another cooling system. So that's cooling system number 2. In our next video, we're going to create cooling system number 3, which is going to be an oxygen infused cooling system, if I'm not mistaken, and that means we're going to be using some compressed gas. It's a little bit different of a design, so check you out in the next video. Thanks for watching.